All right, today we're jumping into the Book of Amos. It might be an ancient text, but let me tell you, it packs a serious punch. We're going to get right into its central, timeless question, what does faith really mean? We'll explore its powerful message about justice and, what happens when religion is just for show?
And really, it all comes down to this one single question. What happens when faith totally forgets about justice? What happens when all the religious stuff becomes completely separate from how we actually treat the most vulnerable people around us? This is the exact tension that drives the entire Book of Amos.
Okay, so to really get the message, we've got to understand the messenger first. And trust me, he was probably the last person anyone would have expected for this job.
So, who exactly was this guy Amos? Well, he wasn't some priest in a fancy robe or a big shot in the royal court. Nope. He was a shepherd, a farmer who took care of fig trees. Basically, a total outsider from the southern kingdom of Judah. And that's exactly what makes his message so raw and so brutally honest.
And get this, his mission was super specific. God calls him to pack up, leave his home, and head north to deliver a really tough message. And who's he talking to? Not his own people, but his neighbors in the kingdom of Israel, who, by the way, were riding high at the peak of their wealth and power. Just try to imagine the guts that took.
So you might be asking, what was going on in this supposedly successful kingdom that was so bad it needed this kind of dramatic intervention? Well, let's pull back the curtain and look at the society Amos was about to walk into.
So Amos shows up, and man, he does not hold back. Not one bit. His accusations are sharp, they're specific, and they hit hard. He calls out the systemic oppression of the poor, the exploitation of people who had no one to defend them, and the corruption that was just rampant among the wealthy and powerful. And the root cause of all of it? According to Amos, it was a complete and total neglect of what God had actually asked them to do. And this brings us right to the absolute heart of his critique. It's what he saw as this deep, dangerous hypocrisy that was just poisoning their entire society. This right here just lays out the problem perfectly. See, on the outside, the people of Israel looked super religious, right? They had all the festivals, all the formal ceremonies, the sacrifices, the whole shebang. But Amos comes in and basically says, God doesn't care about any of this performative stuff. Not when it's totally cut off from what true worship is all about, which, for him, means taking on moral responsibilities, having ethical duties, and most importantly, fighting for justice for the vulnerable. And wow, it does not get any more blunt than this. This quote, this is the thunderous beating heart of the entire book. You've got God speaking through Amos, saying all your religious festivals and meetings, they're not just meaningless to me, they're a stench. They're offensive when justice is being ignored. And then you get that incredible image, let justice roll on like a river. That tells you everything you need to know about what God actually values. So what happens next? What happens when a whole society ignores its most vulnerable people and just tries to paper over all that injustice with empty religious shows? Well, according to Amos, there are always consequences.
The warning was out there. The people had a choice to make, but they didn't change. And their actions, or you could say their inaction, led to a verdict that was now completely unavoidable.
And here's the crucial thing to understand. This prophesied judgment, it wasn't random. It wasn't just God being angry for no reason. No, it was a direct consequence of their choices. Amos lays it out plain and simple. Because Israel and its neighbors chose to reject justice and embrace corruption, they were going to face the results. Okay, let's zoom out a bit and break this all down into the big foundational ideas. What are the core themes here that have made the Book of Amos stick around and feel so relevant even thousands of years later?
You can really boil it all down to 4 key pillars. First, this idea that God is sovereign over all nations, not just a select few. Second, and this is a big one, justice isn't just a nice idea or an optional extra. It's absolutely essential to what faith is. Third, pretty simple, actions have consequences. It's a core principle. And finally, you have the role of prophets like Amos, who are there to be God's mouthpiece, to call people back to the right path before it's too late.
Look, if you remember only one single thing from our whole discussion today, make it this. For the prophet Amos, true worship and social justice are two sides of the same coin. They are completely inseparable. You simply cannot claim to love God if you don't also love and care for your neighbor. One is the proof of the other, period. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about, doesn't it? This message, it's not just some dusty piece of ancient history.
It's a living, breathing, timeless challenge. It forces us, even today, to look around and ask ourselves, in our own lives, in our communities, in our world, where do we see that same gap? That gap between what we say we believe and the actual reality of justice for all.